Okay, lens manufacturers out there, can one of you, at least one of you, build us a good zoom lens for use for street photography? Please, please, build us one. When we talk about street photography, usually people are using prime lenses on their cameras for a good reason. But there are times when I would love to have a zoom because I'm working relatively wide angle for most of the shots, and then all of a sudden up comes a shot where I need some length, and I have to, instead rush forward. I'll put up a picture of 3 people taking a photo in Cape Cod, and I was using the 23mm lens on my X100T, and I had to run to get that shot. Whereas if I'd had a zoom, I could have, relaxed a little bit, and I barely got it. I mean, literally, I got 2 shots in, and the lady dropped her phone, put her phone down. So having a zoom would have made life a lot easier. But a lot of the zooms on the market aren't really that great for street. I mean, I've got this little power zoom, 15 to 45 on my XM5. And yeah, you could do street photography with this, but you probably want to put it on full auto the whole time, because when you're shooting manual with a rig like this, it's awkward. So, for me, it would be a camera where I might shoot street while I was on vacation. I took this little camera on vacation, and then I see a street scene and I bang away, but I'll probably be on full auto the whole time. Not the best for street photography. So what would I want in a street zoom? And why can't regular zooms meet my requirements? Well, small and light would be good to start with. And I would also want the zoom and the focusing to be internal, so the lens does not lengthen as we zoom or focus. I'd also want the aperture to be constant, and that's where we get into a problem with a lot of small zooms where they are variable aperture. And a constant aperture is much more important in street photography because we're often working on manual exposure. And if you start zooming with regular variable aperture zoom and you're working manual exposure, well, then you run into some problems. I would think a relatively narrow zoom range is sufficient. 2 times or 2.5 times zoom would be enough. And that's how we get away with the smaller size and constant aperture and keeping the overall weight down, is if by not having a big zoom ratio. I don't think it's really all that necessary. So for example, in APS-C, we could do 18 to 40, for example, or 18 to 45. In full frame, you might want to do, 28 to 60 or 28 to 70. Keeping the size down, keeping the zoom range down, and you can get a constant aperture. Because usually, if you have a broad zoom range and a constant aperture, that makes for a big lens. And that's what we're trying to avoid. Now, the other thing is, when it comes to the autofocus, something else to keep the size and the weight and the cost down is to go with a stepping motor. And if you're not moving a lot of glass, a stepping motor's fine. It's quiet, it's quick. You don't need ultrasonic or linear motors for that kind of job if you're not moving a lot of glass. And I'm going to talk about some other features where the stepping motor will be perfectly adequate for. Also, of course, weather sealing. We don't go out in, only sunny conditions. We will often go out when it's miserable, so you need a weather sealed lens. Now, one of the things I like on this 70-300 is that it has a zoom lock. Now, that's only at 70 millimeters. When you zoom it, the lock comes off, and it's to prevent lens creep. Well, what I'd like to see, let's say we use a 20 to 40 APS-C zoom, for example. You'd have zoom locks at 23, 27, and 35. So you can lock the zoom in any one of those spots to turn it into a prime lens. So if you want to walk around and use it as a prime lens, you just hit that zoom lock and it stays put. But if you need to zoom, then a twist of the zoom ring and the lock comes off, just like on that lens. So that's the kind of thing I would like to see in terms of the zoom, is that not only is it a limited zoom ratio, but we also have these zoom locks where we can actually turn the thing more or less into a prime lens by locking the zoom in one position. And it's important that the zoom doesn't change position as we're moving around and doing things and handling the camera. You know, you're handling the camera and you accidentally zoom, you know, and now it's no longer where you think it is. That's why the zoom lock's important. Now, as far as the autofocus is concerned, I've mentioned the stepping motor, but if we could have a mechanical zoom ring with a focusing scale, distance scale. And you know, what I visualize mechanically is that you have, you know, your minimum to infinity, and then there's a stop at infinity, but if you push past it, it's in autofocus. Now, that would be great because you could do it at your eye. You could be in autofocus and you're struggling to get what you need, and then you can just pop past that stop, and now you're in manual focus. That would be fantastic. It may be mechanically too complicated. So what I was thinking in other fallback positions, and again I'll refer to this lens, it has a two-position focusing range. It goes from 5 meters to infinity or full. So why not on a lens like this, you have a button, it's 3-position, 3 to 5 meters, or 2 to 10 meters, or full. So you can keep the focus working in a limited range, okay? That makes it very, very easy to keep your focus from going too far. Like, for example, if you're in single point focus and your single point is now on a wall that's 30 meters away, your camera ignores it, which is quite good. So that's one thing, a switch that would allow us to go from, you know, 3 to 5 or 2 to 10 or full. Alternately, if that was too complicated, just a function button that we can put our focus lock on there. So we hit focus, that button for focus lock to turn it on, hit it again to turn it off. That would be fantastic, because then you're keeping the button on the lens where your hand is. You're not fiddling around. Now, I use different cameras for street photography at different times. I could use this, I could use my X Pro 3, I could use one of my other cameras. And the focus lock button is in different places on those cameras. So if you switch cameras, you're fumbling, where's the focus lock again? If it's on the lens, you never make a mistake. It's right by where your thumb is. Bang, you've locked your focus. So the 3 things: mechanical if possible, the limiting switch, which limits the range, and if that's too impractical, at least a function button that we can program to put in our focus lock. So we can use back button focusing basically for that. So I think that's kind of my wish list for a street zoom. You know, if one of the major lens manufacturers, you know, Tamron, Sigma, or one of the newer ones, Viltrox, for example, if any of you guys are interested, why don't you look at building one of those zooms? As I say, limited zoom range. It's got a way of controlling the autofocus, so you can manage your focus, or if mechanical is too impractical. Some of the things that makes it easy. Oh, and I forgot one thing. I just remembered. I forgot to mention aperture ring. We need an aperture ring with the markings. So we can look, and the whole point of that is you can look and see where your settings are and not be constantly having to look at a screen or look in your viewfinder to see, oh, what am I at again? You know, because one of the big problems is with these dials at the front, it's easy to move one, and now you're no longer in the aperture you think you're in. So that's why it's important to have an aperture ring. Forgot that bit. Anyway, somebody give a crack. I'd buy one. So give that some thought, lens manufacturers. Cheers.